Leah had always thought birthdays were for balloons, laughter, and surprises, but nothing could have prepared her for the kind of surprise that came on her 10th. The little house in the quiet town buzzed with love that day. Bright streamers lined the walls, and the sweet scent of jollof rice and vanilla cake filled the air. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Williams, had gone all out, just for her. As she sat with a paper crown tilted on her head, watching her parents dance around the table with her cake, Leah's smile was wide, her eyes sparkled with joy. It was a moment so perfect, so pure, it could have been frozen in time. But fate had other plans, dark ones that crept in just as the candles flickered out. That evening, just as they sat down to eat, the door burst open. 3 masked men stormed in, shouting and waving guns. Leah froze in her seat, her fork trembling midair. Her mother screamed. Her father stood up to protect them, but the first shot silenced him. The second ended her mother's cry. In seconds, the house that had moments ago echoed with birthday songs now dripped with silence and blood. Leah sat paralyzed beside the lifeless bodies of the only people she ever loved. The men didn't even look at her as they fled into the night, leaving her alone, shattered, shaking, and orphaned on the day that was meant to mark a new year of life. The candles were still smoking. Her cake was untouched. And somewhere deep inside her, something broke, something that might never heal. Leah couldn't understand how life could shatter so quickly. Just days ago, she had been laughing with her parents, cutting birthday cake, and making wishes under flickering candlelight. Now she stood beside their graves, numb, watching the soil swallow the only people who ever truly loved her. Tears streamed down her face, but even her cries felt silent in a world that had suddenly grown cold and unfamiliar. After the burial, her Uncle Bakery stepped in, not with warmth, but with a silent claim over her father's life. The house, the cars, the bank accounts, everything. Leah was told she'd live with him now. They said it was for her own good. But as she clutched her tiny suitcase and stepped into what used to be her home, now filled with unfamiliar voices, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. At first, Uncle Bakery, his wife Helena, and their twin daughters Amaya and Amari treated her kindly. They gave her warm meals, smiled at her, and even helped her unpack her clothes. Leah almost believed things would be okay. But 2 weeks later, the kindness vanished like a switch had flipped. Helena began barking orders, handing her a list of chores that stretched longer each day. Amaya and Amari watched with smug faces as Leah scrubbed floors, washed dishes, and swept the compound, tasks they never lifted a finger for. Helena would scold her for the smallest things, sometimes even deny her food if the chores weren't perfect. Leah, once adored and cherished, was now a ghost in her own house, unseen, unheard, and treated like a burden. And deep down, she began to wonder, was this her new life forever? Every day was the same for Leah, sad, tiring, and full of pain. Her Uncle Bakery took her out of the nice private school she used to go to and sent her to a public school that didn't even have clean toilets or enough chairs. But his daughters, Amaya and Amari, still went to the best private school in town. Leah had to wear old, torn uniforms while they wore brand new ones. She wanted to complain, but she knew no one would listen. Life was so hard, but she had no choice. She was now 15 years old, and for 5 long years, no one had shown her real love. She did all the house chores, got shouted at for no reason, and still had to go to school and act like everything was fine. Her heart was tired, but she told herself she had to keep going. She missed her parents every single day. Sometimes, just remembering her mom's soft voice or her dad's warm hug made her cry even harder. One night, Leah sat on her small bed in the servant quarters, cold, quiet, and all alone. The room was tiny, with cracked walls and a thin mattress on the floor. She wrapped her arms around her knees and started crying softly. "God," she whispered, "what did I do wrong?" Her tears soaked her cheeks. "Why did you take my parents from me? Why do I have to suffer like this?" She had so many questions, but no one to give her answers. She thought back to the days when Uncle Bakery and his family used to be so kind. They would laugh together, eat together, and even bring her gifts. But now they treated her like she didn't belong. Leah felt invisible, like she didn't matter to anyone. That night, she told herself maybe she was cursed. Maybe she didn't deserve to be happy. And for the first time, she didn't even fight the sadness. She let it swallow her whole. One evening, Aunt Helena told Leah to make dinner and warned her clearly. "There is meat today, and I've counted all the pieces. Make sure none goes missing." Leah nodded quickly and went to the freezer to take out the meat. She placed it in a pot to boil on the stove, then went to the twins' bedroom to change their bedsheets, just like she was told. While she was away, Amaya and Amari tiptoed into the kitchen. They giggled as they lifted the pot lid, grabbed some hot meat, and stuffed it into their mouths. They chewed fast, wiped their fingers, and rushed back to the living room, acting like nothing had happened. The smell of meat still filled the air when Leah returned, unaware of what had happened. Just as she entered the kitchen, Aunt Helena stormed in, her face dark with anger. She lifted the pot lid, stared inside, and shouted, "You stupid girl, come here." Leah froze, her heart pounding, then slowly walked over. "What did I say about the meat?" Aunt Helena barked, pinching Leah's cheek hard. Tears rolled down Leah's face. "I'm sorry, I didn't do anything," she said in a shaky voice. "Are you calling me a liar now?" Aunt Helena snapped. "Do you think I'm stupid? Some pieces are missing." Leah cried harder. "I didn't take it, Ma. I was just changing Amaya and Amari's beddings." But before she could say more, Aunt Helena slapped her across the face. "So who stole it, if not you? Are you calling my daughters thieves?" Leah shook her head and whispered, "I don't know, Ma. I'm sorry." Aunt Helena pointed to the pot and said coldly, "No dinner for you. Finish cooking in 1 hour and go to bed." She walked out, leaving Leah to cry silently as she stirred the food, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. When Aunt Helena got to the living room that night, she was full of anger. "Can you imagine that shameless little brat?" she said loudly. "I told her not to touch the meat, but she still did. Her foolishness will cost her." Uncle Bakery shook his head and added, "She needs to learn. We're doing her a big favor by letting her stay here, and she still behaves like this." Meanwhile, Amaya and Amari sat on the couch giggling, proud of the trouble they caused. They didn't feel bad at all. When Leah finished making the food, she quietly served everyone at the dining table, then walked away with her head down and went to bed, still hungry and heartbroken. The next morning, while Leah was cleaning the house, Aunt Helena gave her some money and told her to go to the market to buy groceries. Leah placed the money safely inside the drawer of the TV stand so she could finish cleaning first. But she didn't know that Amaya and Amari had been watching. As soon as Leah went to clean the bedrooms, the twins sneaked in and stole the money. When Leah finished all her chores and went back to get the money, it was gone. Her heart raced. She looked everywhere, then nervously asked the twins, "Please, have you seen the money that was here?" But Amaya stood up and shouted, "What? Are you trying to say we stole it?" No, I'm just asking," Leah replied, shaking. "Mom, come hear this," Amaya called. Aunt Helena rushed downstairs. "What is going on?" she asked. "Leah is pretending she lost the money so you can give her more," Amari lied. Without thinking, Aunt Helena slapped Leah hard. "I'm sorry, Ma," Leah said, falling to her knees. "You don't work for anything, and that's why you act this way," Aunt Helena yelled. "From tomorrow, you'll have to work before you eat." The next morning, Uncle Bakery and Aunt Helena gave Leah a big tray full of oranges. "Here," Uncle Bakery said, placing the tray in her hands. "Make sure this tray is empty when you come back, and don't lose a single coin. Don't try me, because I'm not the one," he warned with a hard look. Leah quietly nodded, balanced the tray on her head, and walked to the market. She walked under the hot sun, calling out with a loud voice, "Buy orange, sweet orange, buy orange, sweet orange." Her feet hurt and her throat was dry, but she kept walking, hoping someone would buy from her. That first day was slow, but by evening she had only 4 oranges left. She rushed home, tired and dusty, hoping they'd be proud. But Aunt Helena just frowned and shouted, "You couldn't even finish selling them?" Then she threw a small plate of food at Leah. Leah said nothing. She was hungry, and even a little food was better than nothing. From that day on, Leah's life changed again. She woke up very early every morning, swept the house, washed clothes, cleaned the compound, and cooked breakfast. Then she would take the tray of oranges and head to the market. Some days were good, others were not. But no matter how many she sold, Aunt Helena would always find something to complain about. At night, Leah would eat a tiny portion of food and sleep on her thin mattress in the servant quarters, sore and tired. Still, she kept going. No one cheered for her, no one helped her, but she told herself to be strong. Maybe, just maybe, things would change one day. Days turned into weeks, and Leah's life became harder with each passing day. One afternoon, while walking through the busy market selling her oranges like always, a group of street kids ran past her, playing and laughing. Before she could move, one of them bumped into her, and she fell hard on the ground. The tray of oranges flew into the air, and the fruits rolled across the busy road. Cars passed by quickly, crushing most of the oranges. Leah's heart sank. She sat on the dusty ground, tears falling down her cheeks as she watched the mess. Her hands shook as she picked up the few oranges that were not destroyed. "They won't believe me," she whispered. "They never do." She held the small money she had made earlier in her hand, and her chest tightened with fear. She could already hear Uncle Bakery's angry voice in her head. "I can't go home," she said to herself, her voice shaking. She stood up slowly, wiped her face, and looked around. Then she made a choice, one she never thought she'd have to make. Leah used the little money she had left and boarded a small bus heading to a nearby town. She remembered her mother's best friend, Auntie Remy, who once told her, "If you ever need a safe place, come to me." Leah didn't know if Auntie Remy still lived there, but it was the only hope she had. Meanwhile, back at home, Aunt Helena paced angrily. "How come she's so late today? That girl keeps testing me. Today she'll regret it," she hissed. "Oh, she'll deal with me," Uncle Bakery growled, his face full of rage. They waited and waited, but Leah never came back. And for the first time, the house felt too quiet. When Leah finally arrived at Auntie Remy's house, it was already dark, but she had the right address. She knocked on the gate nervously, and the gateman opened it and let her in. Auntie Remy came out, surprised to see her. "Leah, oh my goodness," she gasped, rushing to hug her tightly. "Hey baby girl, are you okay? You look so troubled," she said softly, brushing Leah's hair back from her face. Leah's eyes filled with tears as she sat on the couch and told Auntie Remy everything. How her parents died, how Uncle Bakery took everything, and how Aunt Helena and the twins treated her like a servant. Auntie Remy's heart broke listening to every word. Tears gathered in her eyes as she pulled Leah into a warm hug. "Oh, my poor child," she whispered. "You've been through so much." She led Leah upstairs, gave her fresh clothes, and told her to take a bath and rest. When Leah came downstairs, she couldn't believe what she saw. So much food laid out on the table. Her heart warmed. She hadn't seen this much food in years. She sat down and started eating quickly, stuffing spoonful after spoonful into her mouth, drinking juice in between bites. It was like she had been starving for a lifetime. Auntie Remy watched her quietly, sadness in her eyes. "Slowly, honey, there's plenty of food. You don't have to rush," she said gently. Leah looked up, nodded quickly, and kept eating, tears mixing with her smile. For the first time in so long, she felt safe, loved, and full. That night, Leah knew she had finally found a place where she belonged. After dinner, Auntie Remy showed Leah to the guest room where she would sleep. The room was big and cozy, with clean sheets and a soft bed. Leah lay down and almost cried from relief. She hadn't slept this comfortably in years. The next morning, Auntie Remy bought her new clothes, shoes, and even a pretty bag for school. Life suddenly felt normal again. Auntie Remy and her daughter, Rena, treated Leah like family. They laughed together, ate together, and even watched movies at night. For the first time in so long, Leah didn't have to scrub floors or beg for food. The house had servants who cooked and cleaned, so Leah finally got to rest. Days turned into weeks, and Leah felt safe, loved, and happy. It was like a dream she didn't want to wake up from. But as good as it was, Leah didn't know what was coming next. One afternoon, Uncle Tony, Auntie Remy's husband, came home from work. He had been working abroad for months, and his arrival brought joy to everyone in the house. He came with bags full of gifts and hugged Auntie Remy and Rena tightly. Leah smiled shyly from the corner, watching the happy reunion. For a few days, everything stayed perfect. They had family dinners, laughed around the table, and the house was filled with joy. Leah felt like she was finally part of a real family again. But deep down, she didn't know that this happiness wouldn't last forever. Suddenly, Uncle Tony started acting strange. He began giving Leah weird glances that made her feel so uncomfortable. She didn't fully understand what was happening, but she knew it was wrong. His stares felt scary and inappropriate, yet he never said a word to her. Leah wanted to tell someone, but she couldn't bring herself to speak, not even to Auntie Remy, the woman who had shown her so much love and kindness. She didn't want to ruin the only safe place she had found. Leah was only 16, almost 17, and she felt trapped. She had no one else and nowhere else to run to. The fear grew inside her each day, eating her up slowly, and she didn't know how to make it stop. Then things got worse. Uncle Tony started coming into her room at night. Leah would wake up and see a dark figure standing in the corner, staring at her quietly. Her heart would pound so loudly she could hear it in her ears. When she turned on her bedside lamp, it was Uncle Tony. He would smile awkwardly and say, "I was just checking on you and Rena," before walking out. It felt so wrong, so creepy, that Leah couldn't sleep afterward. Every night, she lay awake, terrified of what might happen next. Her mind raced with fear and questions. What was he planning? Should she tell Auntie Remy? But what if no one believed her? What if she ruined the only happy family she had left? She felt trapped in silence, with no way out. Eventually, Uncle Tony got too comfortable. One night, after drinking a few glasses of wine, he quietly made his way to Leah's room while everyone was asleep. Leah woke up to his hand tightly covering her mouth, stopping her from screaming. Panic rushed through her as he tried to force himself on her. She kicked and struggled, but he was too strong. With all her strength, she bit his arm, making him grunt in pain. "Stop the noise," he hissed. "Be quiet and I'll let you go." Leah froze, trembling with fear, and finally went still. He released her, his eyes cold and full of threat. "If you tell anyone, you won't like what happens next," Uncle Tony whispered darkly. "My wife trusts me completely. I'll tell her you begged me for money, and when I refused, you tried to ruin me. She'll believe me, not you. And if you try anything, you'll be thrown out of this house with nowhere to go. Do you hear me?" Leah's heart pounded so hard she could barely breathe. She nodded quickly, tears streaming down her face. Satisfied, Uncle Tony smirked and left the room quietly. Leah slid down to the floor, shaking uncontrollably, hugging her knees as sobs racked her body. Her safe haven had turned into a nightmare. With no parents, no relatives willing to care for her, and no one to trust, she felt trapped, hopeless, and alone once again. Leah knew she had to get out. After what happened that night, she couldn't stay there another day. Uncle Tony had tried once and almost succeeded. She was sure he would plan something worse next time. Fear sat heavy in her chest as she realized she was back to square one, lost, scared, and with no one to protect her. That morning, she forced herself to act normal, even smiling when she didn't want to, so no one would suspect anything. But inside, her mind was racing. She needed a plan, fast. She decided she would leave quietly without causing trouble. The next day, Leah went to Auntie Remy and calmly said, "Auntie, I want to visit Auntie Lola for a few days." She spoke so naturally that Auntie Remy didn't think twice and agreed, saying, "All right, but be back in 3 days." Leah nodded and went to her room. Her hands trembled as she packed her bag, taking only what she truly needed. Before leaving, she wrote a heartfelt note thanking Auntie Remy for her kindness and for giving her a home when she had nowhere else to go. She placed the note neatly on her bed, wiped her tears, and quietly left the house. Without looking back, she boarded a bus heading to the city, her heart pounding with fear and hope all at once. This time, she was determined to escape and start over, no matter what it took. Leah sat in the transport vehicle, staring out the window with tears in her eyes. Her mind was full of worry and fear. She knew deep down that she could never go back to Auntie Remy's house. But what if Auntie Lola didn't want her either? All she had left was hope. Hope that this time her life would be different. She wished her grandparents were still alive. They would have loved her and taken care of her. Maybe then things wouldn't be this hard. But now that was just a dream. All she could do was pray silently that things would finally get better. When Leah arrived in the city, Auntie Lola welcomed her inside and listened as Leah poured out her heart. After hearing her story, Auntie Lola sighed and said firmly, "If you want to stay here, you must work. You can't just sit around." Leah quickly nodded. "Okay, I'll do it," she replied, because she knew she had no other choice. Auntie Lola owned one of the biggest club restaurants in the city, and it was always busy. She told Leah she would help in the kitchen and sometimes serve customers. Leah agreed, determined to endure whatever it took to have a roof over her head. This was her only chance to survive. Leah worked hard every day at Auntie Lola's club restaurant, but soon she learned a terrible truth. The club was not just for food and drinks. Auntie Lola also gave young women to rich men who paid for them. Leah was still underage then, so she was safe for a while, but the fear never left her heart. She knew Auntie Lola only cared about money and wouldn't think twice about giving her away too. Weeks passed, and Leah felt more like a prisoner than family. Auntie Lola scolded her often, treating her like a stranger, not a niece. Still, Leah endured it because she had nowhere else to go. Eventually, Leah turned 18, and everything changed. Now men were allowed to pay for her too, even if she didn't want it. She felt trapped with no way out. One evening, Auntie Lola handed her a food tray and a key card. "Take this to room 14, she ordered coldly. Leah's hands trembled as she held the tray. She knew exactly what this meant. Her heart pounded fast, and fear wrapped around her like a tight rope. She didn't want this for herself. She valued her body, her sanity. But what choice did she have? She walked slowly toward the room, her mind racing, terrified of what would happen next. When Leah opened the door, her heart nearly stopped. Sitting on the bed was a man old enough to be her father, staring at her with a look that made her stomach twist. Her hands began to shake, and she quickly placed the drink on the bedside table, hoping to leave as fast as she could. But just as she turned to go, the man grabbed her wrist tightly. "We are not done here yet, young lady," he said with a chilling voice. Leah's breath caught in her throat. "Sir, please. I can't do this," she pleaded, yanking her hand free. Without another word, she bolted out the door and ran down the hallway, her heart pounding in fear. The man, furious and embarrassed, stormed out and went straight to confront Miss Lola before leaving the club. Minutes later, Miss Lola came looking for Leah, her voice thundering through the halls. "Where is that ungrateful idiot?" she screamed. Leah froze in place, trembling. When Miss Lola found her, she slapped her so hard that Leah's cheek burned. "Do you want to ruin my business after everything I've done for you?" she shouted angrily. "You are so ungrateful. Do you know how many years it took me to build this place? If you think I'll let you destroy it, you're wrong. Get yourself together, now." Miss Lola spat before storming off, leaving Leah shaken and broken, her heart heavier than ever. Leah rushed into the bathroom, slammed the door shut, and slid down onto the cold tiled floor. Her whole body shook as she cried uncontrollably. "God, what did I do to deserve this?" she sobbed. "Why is my life always full of pain and suffering? Why me?" Her voice cracked as she spoke to the empty room. "I never get a chance to be happy. I'm always crying, being beaten, hungry, and scared. I'm so tired of this pain, Lord. Please take this cup away from me." Her tears fell faster as she whispered, "If there is a miracle at all, now is the time. If there is anyone out there you can send to help me, please do it now, God. I have nowhere else to go." Her voice trembled as she quoted, "Your word says in Numbers 14:28, 'As I live, says the Lord, what you have said in my hearing I will do to you. Please hear me, and do to me, Lord, please answer me.'" She stayed there on the floor, silent, staring blankly at the wall, her face wet with tears. Her heart felt empty, and she couldn't see any future for herself, not even tomorrow. After a while, someone knocked on the door. It was one of Auntie Lola's workers. "Leah, Miss Lola says you should go home and rest for the night. Clear your head and come back to work tomorrow." Leah wiped her face with her hands, stood up slowly, and walked out without a word. Her feet felt heavy as she left the club and headed home, carrying all her pain with her, unsure if her prayers would ever be answered. Auntie Lola never paid Leah any money. All her work was only rewarded with food to eat and a place to sleep. The next evening, Leah went to work as usual, her heart heavy with dread. That night was no different. Another man paid for her, and Auntie Lola handed her a key card. Leaning close, she whispered sharply, "Make sure you don't repeat your mistake. I won't be so nice next time. If you know what's good for you, go in there and do what you're supposed to do." Leah's stomach twisted as she nodded quietly, her body trembling. She felt herself giving up inside. Slowly, she walked to the room, her heart pounding louder with every step. When she opened the door, the man was already waiting, and he was not patient at all. Before she could even speak, he grabbed her roughly. Fear exploded inside Leah, but she knew she couldn't let this happen. She fought back with all her strength, pushing, kicking, and screaming. The man tried to hold her down, but she managed to hit him where it hurt most. He groaned loudly in pain and loosened his grip. Without wasting a second, Leah bolted out of the room, her heart racing like never before. As she ran through the corridors, Auntie Lola's angry words rang in her head. She didn't care anymore. She had to get out. She didn't know where she would go, but she knew she could never stay there another night. Leah ran as fast as she could, her heart pounding so loudly she could hear it in her ears. She didn't dare look back, afraid someone from the club might be chasing her. Suddenly, she bumped into the front of an expensive SUV parked by the roadside. She fell hard to the ground, gasping for breath, her whole body trembling. The car stopped instantly, and out stepped a very handsome man in his mid-20s. It was Miguel Harichi, the son of one of the richest men in the city. He rushed toward her, concern written all over his face. "Hey, are you okay?" he asked gently, helping her up. Leah, still terrified and shaking, couldn't find her voice. She just nodded quickly, her wide eyes staring at him like a frightened child. Miguel could see she was freezing and scared out of her mind. Without a second thought, he took off his blazer and gently wrapped it around her shoulders. "You're safe now," he said softly. Then, without asking too many questions, he carefully lifted her into his arms and carried her to his SUV. Once inside, he made sure she was comfortable in the warm car and drove her straight to his home. When they arrived, Leah stared in awe. The mansion was huge and beautiful, like nothing she had ever seen. Miguel carried her inside and led her to one of the guest rooms. "You'll be safe here," he said kindly, his voice calm and reassuring. For the first time in a long time, Leah felt a tiny spark of hope. Miguel went to his room and picked out some clean clothes she could wear for the night. When he returned and stepped into Leah's room, she quickly backed away, her face full of fear. Miguel immediately raised his hands gently. Hey, calm down," he said softly. "I don't know what happened to you, but I can see you're scared. I just want you to feel safe here. I won't hurt you, and I'll never touch you without your permission. I'm not that kind of man." His voice was calm and kind, and Leah slowly nodded, feeling a bit of relief. Miguel smiled reassuringly, handed her the clothes, and left the room so she could freshen up. Leah took a long shower, feeling clean for the first time in days, and then went to bed, falling into the deepest sleep she'd had in years. The next day, Miguel went to work as usual. On his way home, he stopped by a big store and bought clothes, shoes, and toiletries for Leah, everything she might need. When he got back to the mansion, he found her in the living room. He handed her several gift bags and said, "Take these to your room. It's everything you'll need." Leah's eyes widened in surprise. "Thank you, sir," she said softly. Miguel chuckled and shook his head. "You don't have to call me sir. Just Miguel, okay?" "Okay, Miguel," she replied shyly, and for the first time in a long while, a small smile appeared on her face as she carried the bags upstairs. One evening, as Miguel and Leah sat together on the couch, he looked at her gently and said, "I'd really love to know your story, but only if you're ready to talk about it." Leah took a deep breath and nodded. "No, it's okay. I'm ready," she replied softly. Slowly, she began to tell him everything. From her 10th birthday, when her parents were shot right in front of her eyes, to all the pain, hunger, and beatings she endured living with her uncle's family, and finally, her escape from Auntie Lola's club. Miguel listened quietly, his face serious, his heart breaking with every word she spoke. By the time Leah finished, tears were streaming down her cheeks, and her hands trembled from reliving those memories. Miguel immediately moved closer and wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly. "I'm so sorry you had to go through all that," he whispered, his voice filled with emotion. "You didn't deserve any of it. No child should ever go through what you went through." Leah buried her face in his chest, crying softly. Miguel stroked her hair gently. "But listen to me," he said firmly. "You are the strongest woman I've ever met, stronger than anyone I know. You survived all of that, and you're still standing. I'm so proud of you, Leah. In the end, there is always light. You hear me?" Leah nodded through her tears, feeling a warmth in her heart she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she truly believed things could change. Miguel could see how deeply hurt Leah was by everything she had gone through. He knew she needed help to heal, so he immediately booked therapy sessions for her. The very next day, Leah began her first session, the first real step toward her healing. Miguel made sure she never missed any of her appointments, always encouraging her and reminding her how strong she was. Slowly, Leah started to feel lighter. The pain she carried for so long began to fade little by little. With each passing day, Miguel stayed by her side, and they grew closer and closer. For the first time in years, Leah felt safe, cared for, and understood. As days turned into weeks, their bond became stronger, and soon, they both realized they were falling in love. One evening, Miguel looked into her eyes and asked her to be his girlfriend. Leah's heart nearly burst with joy. This was one of the happiest days of her life. Miguel treated her with so much kindness and love, making her feel like she truly mattered. With him, there was no struggle, no fear, only peace and happiness. She didn't have to fight to be seen or heard. Miguel made her feel like a queen. He was gentle, sweet, and genuine, and Leah knew deep in her heart that he was heaven-sent. Indeed, God had heard her cries and sent someone who truly loved her and wanted the best for her. Miguel wanted Leah to have something she could call her own, so he opened a big boutique store for her. Leah was so excited and poured her heart into running it. With Miguel's support and her hard work, the boutique quickly became successful. More and more people came to shop, and soon her business was flourishing. Leah loved every moment of it, meeting new customers, arranging clothes, and seeing her dreams slowly come true. She finally felt proud of herself, and for the first time, she saw a bright future ahead. Life felt normal again. There was no more pain, no more hardship, and no battles to fight. It was just pure joy and happiness every single day. Leah would often sit in her boutique, smiling as she watched everything she had built. Whenever she looked back at her life and remembered all she had been through, she would whisper a prayer of thanks. "Thank you, God, for your grace," she would say. Her heart was full of gratitude because she knew it was only by God's mercy that she had come this far. She finally had peace, love, and a life she had always dreamed of. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. Kindly subscribe, like, comment, and share my video with your loved ones. Turn on your notification bell to always be informed whenever I post another interesting video like this one. Until next time, take care.